Hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel where stories and other random things take center stage and imagination is prized above all. Happy Monday. I hope you guys are having a lovely, fantastic morning, and we'll continue to have a wonderful rest of your day. And I do believe it's Monday because it's based on my counting anyway. And even though I'm pre-filming this, happy Monday, and also happy Halloween. And for Halloween of 2022, we're going to talk about the scariest thing of all, harmful representation. And we're going to do this through an example of a Spanish telenovela known as La Fuerza del Destino, which translates to the power of destiny. I believe this was released sometime in 2011. I think I saw this, I was like 11 or 12. I do remember being in middle school when I watched it the first time. And I recently rewatched it and did struggle whether to review it or not. And I had an idea of reviewing it, then I said no, and then I'm like, you know what, whatever. It's blindness. I can do it for Blindness Awareness Month because I want to talk about this. I made a video some time ago, maybe a couple of months ago, I'm not too sure, about my recommendations for writing a blind character. And I specifically said in the title, no inspiration porn required. I'm pretty sure this is a good place to explain what inspiration porn looks like, not to mention how the representation of it is bad. Now, I do a representation of blindness itself is bad. I do have, however, some caveats to that, which I'll be explaining in the review itself, because there are things that I know of that can happen, but there are just some harmful things there I'm going to talk about. So this novela is about, this story specifically is about, we follow our main male character, who in the originally is Ivan Villagomez, and he with his mother goes to Aylin, not the time Aylin, who he goes to this house. It's a ranch, and he goes to this house with his mom. She's looking for work, and his mother was the illegitimate daughter of the person who originally owned the house. So his name is Teodoro, so basically Theodore, if you want to go English for a little bit. And his wife, Carlota, or Charlotte, I guess if you want to go English as well, but anyway, whatever. Carlota owns the house and is currently the new owner. And but Alicia, Ivan's mom, is the illegitimate daughter, and she was told that if anything went wrong, to go there. And originally, Carlota thought that she was going to be blackmailed or whatever for money, and instead she asks for a job and for her to help her pay for Ivan's studies. Turns out he's a really gifted student and everything. So she gets the job, things work out. Years pass, he has developed a friendship with Carlota's granddaughters, mainly with Lucia, because Maripaz is they developed a friendship in teenage years, but then she leaves to boarding school and then comes back, and they develop some type of sexual relationship, and which he really loved her though. However, due to that relationship between him and Maripaz, she gets pregnant, and the first thing that they wanted to have is an abortion, but one of the things but eventually they say no, not to do that because it's a baby or whatever. It's a lot of pro-life related things rather than more pro-choice when it comes to that stuff here. And so they leave, but before they leave, Lucrecia, their mother, that Lucia and Maripaz's mother, sends these people to basically beat him up. And he is lied to after he gets beaten up because his best friend Camilo and his brother Antolin basically help him out, and Camilo's brother kills a man, and Listen, I know I'm spoiling like the very beginning of this, but it's really hard to explain the plot without spoiling the beginning. Which reminds me, there probably will be at least some semi-spoilers in the rest of the video. So he kills the man, but in order to get, but basically because the man's dead, this guy doesn't want to go to jail. So after some convincing, he ends up saying to Ivan that Camilo saved his life, killed this man with this knife or blade that he gifted him for his birthday, and that, you know, he could end up going to jail. So in order to save him, what they end up doing is that Ivan ends up crossing the border to the US, and there he struggles for a little bit until he finds this guy named Anthony McGuire. I can actually go for English here because it kind of works. His name is Anthony McGuire, who pays for his career as an engineer and later adopts him as his son. So he then returns rich as Ivan McGuire, and he goes there for revenge as well as business, but also to find his son, or his child, really. So that is like the gist of the story. I'm gonna talk about the main story in general. The story itself, I liked it. Okay, listen, I have a belief that there can be some enjoyment in art, in very problematic art. And I do think that this novela does have some problematic elements to it. But I do believe that you can enjoy something even if it's problematic. And besides the problems I have with this and the issues I have, I did enjoy watching it, and I could technically enjoy it. It has a great theme song by Mark Anthony, and I forgot the other person's name, but it's a duet between him and the main the female lead actress of this series. So it has a great theme song. It has some really interesting characters that are mainly well developed, pretty much all of them, with the exception of Carolina, which is like our blind character. Everybody else, with the exception of her, is actually really well developed. And she just but in general, Carolina is like a selfish character, but she also just doesn't get any development even as the novella continues. And the love story between the two main leads is not one I love. I'm pretty sure I've seen better. I'm pretty sure I've seen better love stories. There are issues I have with their love story in general, specifically, especially in the beginning, when there were things that, like, it felt kind of as though he, Ivan was kind of a little manipulative at times. I mean, he never like did things unconsensually, but there were times where I was just like, dude, no, like, don't do that. Like, he was a little too much at times. And Lucia felt very, like, meek at times as well, no matter what happens. And yeah, I mean, this kind of follows a specific novella formula where it's like, these two love each other, something breaks them apart, so they both end up marrying two different people, one for one reason, the other for another reason, but they still love each other and find no love in that relationship. They divorce the other people that they marry. At some point they get back together, and then they end up together and married by the end. Like, that is like the basic formula. But so I remember, I think I found their love story kind of endearing younger, but watching it now, not so much. Now, I will say that my favorite character of the novela is Antolin, because he's originally like the bad boy. Like, he is literally with gangs, and he is always on the streets, and he's really street smart, but he never fully got educated, or like never really like went to college like his brother. But he's like my favorite character because he's considered like a criminal, but he also is really nice. Like, his family is everything to him, and basically if you hurt his family, you're basically a dead person, kind of, even though he doesn't kill you, you're like the person who basically is in trouble with him. And he is the one that falls in love with Carolina. And parts of their love story I actually find extremely endearing, but there are issues. So Carolina's our blind character, and she is represented to be an extremely sheltered blind person. Sheltered as though she doesn't know everything that can happen outside. Like her main way of going outside is with the employee she has, Rosa, who takes her out. And who takes her out when she goes shopping. Now, I don't have too much of an issue with this, but I will say that there are people who are like this, who don't go out as much. I don't go out as much because of transportation issues. But the way that she's represented is so much worse. She has no personality except her blindness. And her main goal in the entire series is to get her sight back, mainly because she was convinced by Antolin, who heavily infantilizes her as well as everybody else. She is the most heavily infantilized character. Like, she takes barely any responsibility for what she does, and a lot of it seems to be chalked up to the fact that she's blind. There's a plot point in the novella, spoilers by the way, where Alex, who's basically like, in the beginning, he's basically like her nephew. So he was raised by Gerardo, and he was registered with him and her sister, whose name I cannot remember, or if they mentioned her sister's name, I don't remember. And they were his parents. But the thing is that he is originally Ivan and Maripaz's son, so he was technically stolen. And because Carolina's sister died, Gerardo basically takes care of Carolina, and Carolina basically raises Alex, and he is her entire life. Like, she has nothing else. There is no life, nothing. She has nothing. Listen, I don't get out of my house that much, but even I know I have other things to do, like this channel, which I like recording for. She has no life besides it, nothing at all. Like, there's nothing else, basically. And when it is threatened that when she believes she's threatened that they're going to take him away, she basically does everything for him not to be taken away, including convincing Antolin to take her on a so-called vacation because Alex wanted to the beach, and they go to her cousins, and she explains, and basically the whole idea is to keep him away from Ivan, because they're like, you can take him away or whatever. And it goes to the point where she tells Alex that Ivan would take him away and that he's a bad man or whatever, and makes Alex believe that Ivan is bad, and turns him against, his biological father. And there's a scene, and this scene irritated me so much, where Lucia and her are talking, and by this time, Antolin is like, I want to help you try to get your sight back so that you have more to your life than just Alex. There is a really big thing about getting sight back in this, where it is portrayed that because she's blind, she has nothing else to live for, and the fact that she doesn't have her sight means that she basically has nothing to look forward to. Like, it's like her sight means that it's like once she gets her sight back, she can have everything she doesn't as a blind person. That is by far one of the most harmful representations I have ever seen of blindness, and I am shocked that this was allowed in 2011 somehow. Because 2011 wasn't the greatest year, but it wasn't as good as it is now for people who are blind. But that is horrible representation. That's bad. And he's the one that convinces her, and she eventually agrees, because she's, because of the whole Alex situation. She just, agrees to that. To that without thinking about she wants to get her sight because she wants to have a life, basically. But there's a scene where her and Lucia are talking. It's like, why I don't like what you're doing. And Lucia specifically said it in a way that is also infantilizing. Like, her voice literally went down to a childish form. It's like, I don't like you right now. Like, it went like that. And I'm like, please speak like an adult. I beg you. You spoke about other things as an adult. Why not this? And Carolina's reaction is to assume that it is because she's blind. And she says, like, you do not know me. And, once I get to see, I'll be able to look at you or whatever. It's a really irritating scene to watch, especially as her character arc continues. Her main character arc is to get her sight back, eventually marry Antolin, and she ends up pregnant. She has a baby by the end. Like, that is like this girl's arc. That's it. Like, she has no personality except her blindness, and we're somehow meant to believe that she has a personality. The only thing that brings this character life is the actress. I want to congratulate that actress for bringing something to the character. But besides that, there are some genuine stereotypes that come up with the blindness here, that is the representation of blindness here. There are some stereotypes. Now, I do want to caveat and say that these are things that I understand, and that this novella takes place in a Latin country. And I don't know if this is the case for all of them, but I do know that some of them don't necessarily have the resources for people who are blind and visually impaired. My own country, I'm originally from Dominican Republic, they don't have the resources to help people who are blind and visually impaired. There are schools for the blind, but there isn't something like a commission for the blind that will help them out if something comes up. They're pretty much left to deal with it on their own, or, have family help them. I actually know a person who became blind as an adult and basically does not seem to have learned much through her, even though she has much skills to navigate her blindness. And this is coming from someone who, I learned this. I was basically, my whole life I was blind, and I learned this. But she has had years to kind of perfect certain skills, and she doesn't seem to fully have a good grasp on all of them. So that's something I do want to say, that I do think that some of these things can come up when it comes to blindness. That's my caveat, that I do think that these things can come up, especially under places that may not have as many resources. And this specific novella takes place in a town, or seemingly a city, maybe a small city, maybe a small town, I'm not too sure, that doesn't comply with all the resources, and sometimes they have to go to a different city to get more resources. So I do want to say that is my caveat to all what that I'm about to say. I do still believe that the infantilization of Carolina, and the fact that they also, the inspiration porn where they put her in a pedestal, because she is literally put in a pedestal. It's like, yeah, she's like totally lying, but she manages the house, she takes care of Alex, it's really great. Like, they put her like that, and it seems to be like super impressive for certain people in the novella. So the besides that, I do have a caveat to some of these representations. So one of the things that comes up is the idea of touching faces, and how it's supposed to show you what people look like. There is, however, I think one thing that is said that is like, I may not know what he looks like, but it's like she thinks Antolin is like, you don't know what I look like, you probably wouldn't want to date me after you see me, right? And she's like, no, you're cute, you're a great person, right? And she's like that. So it does tell me that she probably doesn't have a way to tell what he looks like, but the moment she gets her sight back, she does say, you're exactly how I imagined you would be. So it's making it look like touching faces can give you an idea of what people look like, when I have not known that to be outright true. And I will say that as a child, that is one of the things that was taught to me to feel faces, was one of the things that was taught to me in order to know what people look like. That is not necessarily an effective thing. I will say that is not effective. I would not always recommend it. Plus, you don't know how uncomfortable people might be. And not just the people who are sighted might be uncomfortable with people touching their faces, or like even ask like, can I touch your face and what you feel like? But even some people who are blind might just be uncomfortable. So if you're sighted and you believe that touching faces might tell you who you are, do not force a blind person to touch your face. That's really uncomfortable. I had that a couple times, at least once or twice. It's really uncomfortable. Don't do that. I beg of you, do not do that. I am begging you. That can be really, really uncomfortable. So don't do that. So that's something that comes up. I'm pretty sure she has a white cane, but I'm not too sure. But that's a stereotype that comes up, and like the touching faces thing, and again, the sheltered blind person, the putting her on a pedestal, and the idea of, you know, that because she's blind, she's technically you know, weaker, or not, like, or like less independent, like she doesn't have anything else to look forward to because she's blind. She literally does nothing of interest in the show itself, when she, in the series itself. She's in the house. That's most of what she does, and she only goes out when Rosa picks up groceries once a week, and that's fine. I don't care about the whole going out part, but I do think that mainly the representation is terrible for a person who is blind. She is like the worst representation I've seen of a blind character. The actress only brought life to her, but she was a character that was extremely flat. Like she was nothing. And one of the things I mentioned is that a blind character is basically a real character. You need to write a character that is realistic, the same way you would write sighted characters. Because besides her, every sighted character that was in that series was actually well developed, or at least somewhat developed. And she basically had no work. Her main character arc is to get her sight back. And that is terrible. Even her own love interest infantilizes her. How is that supposed to be a thing? I mean, I remember finding it kind of adorable, and I still find their love story adorable and endearing, but I am definitely annoyed with the way that she is being represented. Other fun parts about the story, or like very problematic parts about the story, are like some of the things. What's interesting is I had issues with like not just Carolina's love story, but also Ivan's love story with Lucia. There are parts that were problematic to me, like the very beginning and the way he reacted with her, and like the way he sometimes got kind of jealous. Sometimes he got kind of like he became someone who would expect things to go a certain way, then he would apologize or whatever, but he would expect that. And what's very interesting is that is not seen as problematic in the very beginning. Like she gets annoyed and she yells at him or whatever, she gets annoyed or whatever, but like there's a part that when she marries Camilo, right, he starts getting possessive and extremely jealous when, thanks Aylin, when Ivan comes from the US, right? And that then is seen as problematic. And yes, it is problematic, but I think there were parts of Ivan's love for Lucia that were definitely problematic as well. So there's things I wanted to mention. Overall, is it a good story? Yeah, it's a classic. Like, I enjoyed it, besides, even if I have all these gripes, including the ending where I felt like Alex's kidnapping was just like another random plot point put there in order to get rid of the villains of the story. Like, in order to get rid of the main villain of the story, like, they just kidnap Alex for ransom. And I'm just like, that's just another useless plot point. You could have gotten rid of them any other way. It just didn't feel like too great in the story. It like the progression was pretty bad. Another thing, this is a bit of a content warning. I'm not gonna mention it right now, but I'm gonna mention it a little bit. But there's a bit of a content warning in the novella where there is sexual assault in the novella. There is a sexual assault plot line. I will say, and I'm not an expert on it, but I do not believe that it was handled well. If we're being honest, I do not believe it was handled well. But again, I'm no expert. I'm just saying what I think, and I don't believe it was handled well. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Infantilization and inspiration porn. And again, this is problematic to me, yet I still enjoyed the series. I do think there is something to learn in problematic things, in problematic stories. And I do think that there's a way that you can enjoy something that's problematic, yet know that it has issues. I mean, the one thing I enjoyed from Twilight was Rosalie's story, where she took theatrical revenge on the man she was supposed to marry after he did what he did, which is heavily implied. At least it is it's something heavily implied, but not necessarily like said, but it is heavily implied. I enjoyed the theatrical revenge, and then I enjoyed Breaking Dawn because it just went off the rails, hilarious. So there are things that can be enjoyed in extremely problematic art, and just know that it is problematic. So those are genuinely my thoughts. Let me know what you think about this. I'll see you tomorrow for our wrap up of all the books I read in October. Subscribe if you're interested in my content. I'll be back tomorrow. And Saturday I'll be reviewing House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, so be here for that. And I will see you soon. And until then, consume stories.
Hey guys, editing me. So I kind of forgot to mention in the video that I will not be making any recommendations for after this novella, mainly because I don't know many that I would want to recommend. Like, I know a couple of good ones that are interesting, but they're nowhere near based on a similar verse. You have nothing similar, so I have no recommendations. However, if you do want to see good blindness representation, I recommend watching C, which is the Apple TV Plus original, which is quite good, and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Honestly, if you really want to see really good blindness representation, I would go with that. And avoid Netflix's Bird Box, because no, it is actually not good representation of blindness whatsoever. Yeah, I just avoid that. And another good thing, if you want to read something blindness related, I would suggest looking up certain memoirs, or I actually would recommend reading books by Georgina Cleage, reading books by Kristen Wojtacki, which I really like. Her writing I really like, so I would recommend reading her 2 books and reading books by Georgina Cleage. I'm sorry to say that I don't know many blind writers, so these are the 2 I can recommend. So yeah, I won't be making recommendations, but I figured I should give that to you at the end of my editing. I should have actually mentioned the video. So anyway, I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.